Let's get started. Welcome, everybody. Let's see. Have to, guess you're a voting member tonight. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. And did anybody get a look at the minutes from last meeting? Any edits? All good? Okay, we'll accept them as submitted. Treasurer's report?
Nothing much has changed except that that Q1 land use change tax money is deposited. So our balance is $628,471.42. When I get the approved minutes from Pat later on this week, I will submit the two items that were approved for spending, which was the turtle signs, which are up, and the amount we owe Dotster for getting our domain for the next 3 years.
Okay. That it then? Okay. We don't have any new business per se, but as you can see, we have a number of cases pending. I don't know if we want to jump to the Ayers Lake issue. I don't know if Connor is willing to stick around for that discussion, or would you like to do it sooner?
Oh, that's kind of you. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to doing it sooner, but I'm also happy to stick around. Don't want to hijack your meeting.
Hey, Jack.
Yeah, you can send an email. No,
The plan is the first attachment. That's the only one that really needs to get
How did you send them?
by email. I sent it to.
Yeah. Well, I sent it also.
Oh, you did? Okay, so he's got two versions or two options.
you say the first one's it? Oh, wait a minute, this isn't showing.
No, it was in your email, right? Get to that.
So many documents. I looked at some, but I'm like, what?
So if folks recall the Ayers Lake boat launch, what was it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? I don't know.
I had
a while ago.
2 years.
There was a plan to renovate, I guess, the existing small boat launch. Is that how you define it, as opposed to it was an illegal ramp, I guess, or the unofficial ramp. And so now we have an actual plan on how to construct it.
Yeah, so here's the existing one right here, marked on Cater Road. And it is that damn close, because I think the original time we got involved in this, it was, why is this here and why can't it be stopped?
Right.
Because of the threat, because the beach over here for the kids. And the fact that there was all kinds of drainage and that it's earthen, which means it was an erosion path.
Right.
It was part of I don't know if you recall, it was part of and Ken wrote a letter in support of a petition that the association presented about more issues than just the boat launch in general, but a lot of them were addressed. I think the boat launch was the kind of, and I remember a letter, Connor, you might recall, road agent suggested he could deal with most issues except the boat launch, and that was to be put off till a later time. And so here we are. Later time has arrived.
Yeah, I'm happy to provide some additional context if you want.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a unique geography between a lake that's held in the public trust and a road that's owned by the town. And there's a lot of history for the access there, but one of the first things that I learned coming to Barrington was that there's nothing that the town can do through its select board to restrict access to the lake from the road. And there's an RSA, and we sent that in a letter back to the Conservation Commission and others back in 2022. And there wasn't support from the select board then or since then in shutting down access. But I think it was important to understand that restricting access wasn't possible. And so in working with the Ayers Lake Association, and the Conservation Commission was involved too, back in 2022, there's a pretty comprehensive letter making recommendations for kind of the larger area, not just specific to this site, but the larger area. And some things were, low-hanging fruit, easy to implement, and some things were a little more challenging, mostly for financial reasons, but also for manpower reasons. And so some of the improvements that were more difficult to address were this kind of informal boat launch where people were and continue to back their cars and trailers on the earthen part of the banking and lake, launching boats. And, some of the erosion concerns were addressed by the road agent through the use of stone chips and angular stone instead of gravel on the road, which helps strengthen the road base. But as you know, when you're backing trucks and trailers in and out of the water, you're never going to prevent that erosion on dirt and sand alone. And so, fortunately, about that time, the state stood up a grant program through the Governor's Office for Resource and Recovery, specific for improving boat launches. And so that was about this time last year that they announced that program, and the town applied. And this was seen as an opportunity to take away the financial burden of making improvements here, going to voters and asking them to pony up the money to kind of solve the erosion problem of this launching site. And so we weren't awarded the grant until late last year. But we were awarded a grant of $100,000 with a 25% match, which is a $33,000 match. But that's because it's 75% of the project total. And that's where the 100,000 comes in. So anyways, the project was advised, among other items, by previous decisions of the select board as far as maintaining the level of access that has existed, but also going back to that letter from the Ayers Lake Association and the Conservation Commission from 2022 and trying to address the challenges that could be addressed in this way, recognizing that not all of the problems would be addressed with this specific project. And this, again, is part of a larger effort to address as many of the problems as we can. And so that's at the last select board meeting. This is a draft of the plans that was shown to the select board for feedback. The select board was generally satisfied with the plans. The Ayers Lake Association Camp Fireside have been steadfast in their perspective that no boat should be able to be launched there, and would like to see an access that prevents boats with trailers. And so that is, that's an unfortunate inconsistency with the perspective of the select board in maintaining the level of access, and the perspective of the Lake Association and Camp Fireside. And so this boat ramp does a few things as far as taking advantage of the geography and not being a Swains Lake boat launch. Most ramps are recommended to be between 15 and 20 feet wide. This is only 12. Additionally, the depth of the water at the end of the ramp is only 3 feet. And part of the project is to excavate so it gets to that depth a little faster than the lake bed does naturally, in order for people not to be backing their vehicles into the water. And so that maintains about a 14% grade, which is recommended by best practices for boat ramp designs. And so certainly the size of boats launched at this proposed improvement to the boat launch would be limited by those geometric factors, the draft of the boat, the width of the ramp, etc. Couple of the other items I'll just point out, and then happy to participate in discussion. There's clearing along Daniel Cater Road to improve the blind curves, which was one of the items referenced in the letter from the Lake Association and the Conservation Commission back in 2022, but also to widen the shoulder of the road to allow safer parking of trucks with trailers along what would be the essentially southbound lane of Daniel Cater Road, and working to preserve the parking area for the beach. And then maybe the most exciting part of the project, or certainly the most exciting part for me, is you see that docking structure there. And attached to that docking structure is one of the assisted kayak launch devices. So folks can bring their kayak to a stable surface, get into the kayak on a stable surface, and then launch in hopes that it, makes kayak-based lake access more accessible to folks, having, flat, smooth surfaces to bring their kayaks to, and then launch safely and recover safely. And so a couple of items on that. So if whoever's showing the plans, so this next page, you'll see that docking structure is on the other side. So in order to have the docking structure on that side, which is generally preferred because it follows the contour of the shoreline a little bit better, that will require cooperation from Campfire side. And I have a meeting with the executive director on Monday to talk about that. And relative to the Conservation Commission, so this project is permitted through DES as a permit by notification. And as you're probably familiar, the permit by notification process is 25 days normally, or 15 days with support of the Conservation Commission. So we have time for either, but if there's support from the Conservation Commission, we can shorten that timeline and give a little bit bigger window to complete the project.
Hunter, can I make 3 comments related to your presentation?
Yeah, so I don't know who's talking. If you could just say who you are, that'd be helpful.
Dan Cassidy.
Great.
The Lake Association had hired legal counsel, and 2 clarifications, and you may need to go back to the town council on this one, is his opinion, and this is Jason Reimers with New Hampshire Land Law. He disputes the ability of the town of Barrington to block that access that he maintains, because the road is not a state road, that the town has that right to block the access. The issue of the notification, permit by notification, he maintains that DES is going to require more time than that. That this is a expansion of a existing structure, and then it'll have to go through a full review. And so that probably negates your request for the Conservation Commission to sort of help expedite this. I have a feeling it's going to go into a full review. So, and then lastly, the comment about vegetation on Daniel Cater Road. I believe the letter from Ken references maintaining vegetation on the side of Daniel Cater Road along the lake. So I don't recall us bringing up an issue of sight lines or, improving that visual, I guess, inside blind corner, as you referred to it. I think the suggestion at this end was that we maintain vegetation to reduce runoff from Daniel Cater Road into the lake. So those 3 issues I just wanted to clarify from both the Lake Association and the Conservation Commission.
Sure, I'm happy to answer if you want, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so in that order, relative to the ability to block access, I guess the first thing that I'll say, or the first thing that I'll reiterate, is no select board that I've worked for since I've been here has had any interest in restricting access. And so I think the understanding the right to the right that they have to restrict access or not is important. But given that none of them have wanted to restrict access, I don't think I don't think the project hinges on the select board's ability to do so or not. So the select board has previously, many years ago, received legal counsel on that statute, and as part of that process, actually went back to the bill that enacted the legislation, which was back in 1990. and it the specific introduction of the legislation was relative to land on national forest property, ponds on national forest property, and not blocking access to that. So it wasn't even specific to state roads. It was public rights of way, being federal jurisdiction, state jurisdiction, or town jurisdiction is how it's interpreted by the town's legal counsel. So I mean, I think obviously, lawyers make the big bucks because they don't always agree, and they get to argue the nuances of intent and statute. Unfortunately, this specific statute has never been litigated, so there isn't great guidance on the court's opinion of what the language meant. But the town's legal counsel's position is that the select board can't restrict access. To the point about permit by notification, so when this project was, or when this grant proposal was first advertised, the first conversations we had were with DES and other state partners to understand the eligibility of this project for this grant proposal and permitting. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, this project is unique because of the geometry, in that the town doesn't own a parcel per se at this site, and it's the road right away, which the town is essentially improving. And so I won't sit here and pretend like I'm a permitting expert, but we have, through the process, we have consulted DES, discussed the nuances of the property and the setbacks and the improvements and the proposed improvements with those state partners. So, obviously there's no permit approval in place, and that's a process nonetheless. And I don't, I can't speak in definitives, but we wouldn't have taken the project this far if we were advised by DES or other state partners that we would be unlikely to be permitted for a project like this. But we'll know more certainly as we proceed. And I think the first step in that is, or the next step in that, I should say, is the select board finalizing the design. And then to the last point about the blind curves, I think this goes back to this proposed project isn't addressing every one of the concerns presented by Ayers Lake Association or the Conservation Commission. And I think the part of the letter that was sent talked about how the road does have blind curves, and that makes the travel of the road not conducive to people blocking the road and stuff like that. So certainly there's conflicting concerns with maintaining a vegetative buffer and cutting back that vegetative buffer to maintain good sight lines. And the executive director for Camp Fireside talked about the concerns of the kids walking along the road and being able to see cars coming and stuff. And so, unfortunately, sometimes the town is forced to weigh the cost and benefit of a variety of mitigation factors. Truth be told, the road agent's recommendation to the select board has consistently been to maintain clear vegetation along that stretch in particular, just for proper maintenance of the road. As you know, especially last summer, driving through that section of the road with the vegetation fully grown in, it's difficult to pass two cars there with nobody else there. So yeah, it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all solution that solves all of the problems. And to that point, it's not to say that these solutions don't adversely impact other concerns, but the net impact is expected to be positive.
Question for Connor?
Sure.
Gail? You mentioned the width of the ramp. I don't think it's too many. Most boaters don't have trailers that are wider than that, but their boats might be. Are the But the fact that there's only 3 feet of water going to be underneath, is that going to be posted so that the town doesn't all of a sudden incur some complaints when somebody sticks their heaven root in the mud? That, you know,
Yeah,
this is a small boat ramp and you're not supposed to launch the Titanic?
Yeah, it's an excellent point, and we've talked a lot about how best to educate users of the geometry and what is expected to work or not. And I actually recently got in touch with Garrett Grasscamp, who is responsible for New Hampshire Fish and Game for all of their boat launch sites. And truth be told, he's somebody that I wish I reached out to sooner because I didn't realize they do all of their design and construction of boat launches in-house. And so even just in the short period of time I've been in touch with him, he's been a great resource. But I brought that up to him and I asked him for examples of boat launching sites that they operate in shallow areas and, kind of what verbiage they use. And he had some ideas, and our engineer has found some language as well. I think one of the items that I would anticipate the select board to establish as a rule of the site is not backing the wheels of the vehicle into the water. The ramp isn't very long, and it doesn't. And part of the education component is making sure residents and users of the site understand that it doesn't get deeper after the end of the ramp. It's a shallower area of the lake. And so to the point about what boats, there's been a lot of question about, okay, well, what kind of boats can be launched there? So pretty safely, any trailered boat that can be kind of manhandled off a trailer, like your aluminum boats and such, are expected to be able to launch there. Some of those smaller pontoon boats where the pontoons hang over the wheels, I mean, pontoon boats have a pretty shallow draft anyways. It's anticipated that those would be able to launch there. But I'm trying to remember now. I think the design specifications for kind of your average run-of-the-mill ramp expect over 4.5 feet at the end of the ramp to float most boats. So education is kind of the most specific answer to your question, but to no one's surprise, I gave you a little bit extra.
Well, education will most likely come from signs. It leads to my second question. I think one of our concerns last year was contaminating the lake because there's not only no facilities to do it, but there's no room, I don't think, to put a facility to get people to properly drain their craft, not carry on whatever Ayers Lake would have to somewhere else, or to make sure they don't contaminate Ayers Lake from their last trip. Is there anything?
And I think there was Dan Cassidy again. I think there was a response that there's also not room for a formal lake host station there either to stop, inspect, and stage actual launching of power boats.
So Connor, is there any provision for somehow at least notifying people or some sort of education on?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess to that point, I would say the town intends to continue and with a formalized launch here, enhance the efforts to educate folks about the existing laws around invasive species. I think it can't be lost on anybody that part of the reason that this site has gotten so much attention is because people are using it as a boat launch today. And that risk, especially as an informal boat launch, for the spread of invasive species exists now. And, the town has installed signs that have gone missing and has reinstalled signs at the site in order to educate folks about the invasive species. And I think it's only going to encourage compliance of the existing laws having a more formalized site. And I'm not familiar with the lack of space for a lake host. I know previously the town has offered to support the Lake Association's pursuit of a grant for the Lake Host Program, which provides grant funds to pay somebody to be out there. I think realistically, there aren't there even after this project there won't be room for more than 3 cars with trailers there. anyways, maybe some additional car top parking. So I don't think, I don't anticipate that there will be such a large volume of utilization. And one of the things the select board's talked about, but we've also talked about with the law enforcement leaders, is making sure that we focus on early enforcement of parking and utilization limits in order to keep people in line. We've had to do this from time to time on Young Road at the Swains Lake boat launch, making sure people aren't parking on private property or where they can't. And that's been pretty effective on Young Road. And we'd intend to pursue the same approach here.
So there will be some enforcement or monitoring of how things are going on weekends or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, the town is not going to do that. But if there's a Lake Coast grant, the town would support that. I reached out, I'm sure you're all familiar with Amy Smagula, and she's a terrific resource. Our partners at the state that deal with this all the time are wonderful. And I asked her, this was a number of years ago, but I've talked to her since then as well. I asked her what communities can do, both financially and otherwise, to support the prevention of invasive species. And she explained the prevention, education, early detection, and rapid response. And so that focusing efforts in those categories is important. One of the things that she said, and our Conservation Commission has taken a leadership role in this area, but one suggestion that she said is a lot of conservation commissions in communities with a lot of lakes will have a invasive species subcommittee or a milfoil subcommittee that kind of helps aggregate information among lake associations. Now, obviously, I think it was just 2 years ago that this Conservation Commission had that Lake Association Summer Conference, which the town supported, the road agent participated in, and so I think those are the types of efforts which can continue to help on the topic. As far as financially, she said that there's communities that financially support either milfoil prevention or eradication, everywhere from $5,000 a year to, I think Molten Borough, she said, has contributed up to $250,000 a year towards milfoil eradication. And obviously it hasn't been a problem, knock on wood, for Ayers Lake. But for Swains Lake, we've recommended to the Lake Association to make a proposal to the select board to introduce a warrant on a future town warrant asking residents to support the efforts that they have for the milfoil. Now, obviously, that's the comes at the end of the process of rapid response, but I think there's a lot of things we do and can do better on the earlier phases of prevention, education, and early detection.
Other comments, questions?
Dan Cassidy, one more time. Connor, it came up at the select board meeting the other night about the removal of vegetation and then what? In other words, how are we going to control runoff from Daniel Cater into the lake? You had mentioned perhaps loaming, seeding, those sorts of efforts, but the plan as it stands right now, when I look at it, hasn't much detail in that regard. So I'm assuming when you go back to the engineers for revisions, are they going to spend some time on that issue? In other words, things like trench drains and catch basins and some type of, efforts to, I guess, take the place of vegetation and its role currently on the side of the road.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the plans right now show loaming and seeding that area of between the edge of the expanded road and the lake. The road agent, his initial feedback to the engineer was, why don't we just install riprap there? And that's a conversation, that's a permitting conversation that we intend to bring up at our next conversation with DES, which is actually tomorrow, because that by permitting requirements is requires more permitting than the project is originally designed for. And so whether that's something that if it's determined to be best for the site is able to be done now or considered in the future. That's part of the conversation we're going to have. But to your point about some of the closed drainage structures, I think it's extremely unlikely that those types of closed drainage would be installed here. There is a cross culvert between Ayers Lake and the pond marshy area on the other side of Daniel Cater Road there, and that we actually wanted to replace that culvert in conjunction with this project, but it's actually going to be more advantageous environmentally to replace that culvert at low water. So I think probably later this year, once the lake is drawn down, we'll end up replacing that culvert and improving the flow and some of the runoff issues on the inlet and outlet end at that time.
Any other comments?
Yeah, so apparently I wrote this letter a couple of years ago, and I was very eloquent, because, the board and the road agent took note of a good deal of it, but now we're at another point. And I should know this, because I was once chair of this commission. The permit by notification, it wouldn't be right of us to slow down the process of the town getting that permit just because there were aspects of it we don't like, or that the Lake Association doesn't like. It would have to be, I think, Doug, and Connor, you can bear me out on this too, because that aspect of what you want to do that requires a permit is problematic. So I'm just asking this as an open question. Is what you want to do that requires a permit problematic? Just that, not, is that problematic? How could we, as a commission, slow this down if we wanted to slow it down?
It wasn't clear if you were asking that question of me or open to everybody, but I'm happy to address it if you'd like.
Sure, go ahead.
Sure.
Sorry, we had a wildlife sighting on 37 Brooks Road. Unfortunately, it was just a neighbor's dog on the road, so nothing too exciting, not minutes worthy. So to your question about the role of the Conservation Commission in reviewing or acknowledging a permit by notification process and reducing the timeline that the Department of Environmental Services reviews that, accepts comments and reviews that. I could not tell you with confidence what the true purpose is, which I think was part of your question. Relative to the value or detriment, I really don't think it changes the project substantially with or without. I mean, I think if there are concerns that the Conservation Commission has, part of the value in being here and even asking for consideration of that note about the permit by notification is certainly to take those comments back to the select board. And so by all means, any concerns that the commission shares as a whole, please bring those forward and I can pass them along to the select board. Relative to the permitting, I don't think that it will, I don't think that will, I don't think the 15 versus 25 days will make or break the project. And to your last question about, what would we do if we wanted to purposely slow the project down? Respectfully, I think that there are people that will try to do that regardless. So maybe the Conservation Commission doesn't have to get in the middle of it, but I wouldn't be in a good position to advise you one way or the other. And I guess to that point, I think, it's tough sometimes when there are, and this happens a lot in land use applications, where there's proposals that come forward that accomplish some goals or visions for the town, but the folks in the immediate area have real or perceived adverse impacts of what's proposed. And I think that's a lot to do with this. I mean, I think the select board, like I said, I think it speaks volumes that every select board that I've worked for since I've been here, which I think has been maybe 10 separate members, has had a steadfast commitment that they want to maintain this access and look for opportunities to improve it to address the concerns. And so I think what that has advised me, again, they set policy perspectives and I look for ways to accomplish them. But what that has advised me is that they, as a whole, have felt that this access site is an asset to the community and a value to the community. And making improvements to it are important not only for the community and the usability of the site, but also for some aspects of the safety and environmental concerns of the site. And so, I think those are the big picture policy perspectives that the select board have set that I'm trying to work towards accomplishing relative to this project.
Just for clarity, the Lake Association remains opposed to this?
The Lake Association's position was, and this was mentioned at Monday night's select board meeting, was to ask that the ramp be significantly downsized, that the dock go in and then it become a car top carry-in facility.
So not allow trailers?
Right.
Yeah, which was.
In other words, eliminate
I thought that
trailers.
was your earlier plan, at least, was for a separate location further up the road. I seem to remember a couple of years ago that was being discussed for kayaks and.
Well,
Did I get
this-
that wrong?
Well, again, the suggestion was to create a kayak
Right.
or car top,
Yeah.
basically, a carry-in access here, and the float, the dock system would be a real asset. The impact would be, trailable motorboats would be restricted.
Right.
So,
But I think you'd also, I think it said in the past that when people tried to put rocks across the opening, they got moved.
Right.
So if you really wanted to prohibit, let's say you didn't build the boat ramp, you left what was there, you'd have to put something in that's more permanent than big rocks to keep people from launching motorboats from that spot.
Right.
So,
And it would have to be a town action, obviously.
well, it'd be a town action. And I think one of the earlier discussions where you and Connor were debating, can the selectmen do it or do they want to do it? It's a political excrement storm to not have a boat launch there because I think they'll hear it.
Yeah.
And I think we understood that 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So to turn my question into an assertion, I think we should stay out of the overall fight at this point.
Mhm.
And I don't think there's anything to be gained by
Giving it
going to 25 days. Let it go to DES and look at the technical aspects. The Lake Association has counsel, and you got to keep, fighting the good fight and do what you need to do. But I think we should let the select board make those hard choices.
Take the
Well,
heat.
the stands right now, the things that we'd like to mitigate, which would be the risk of contamination. I'll say that the lower risk of too much traffic being there relative to the Fireside Beach. Short of, a shutdown, like I just described,
Right.
it's not going to get better because it stands now, people will keep launching, 18-footer motorboats from there, regardless of what, if this gets built or not.
Mhm.
Yeah, so do you need, in order for the commission to endorse your signing off on this, Doug, do you need a vote of the commission to do that?
Well, not if we're not gonna sound like you prefer not acting or not doing. it.
Well, I would suggest that you do what Connor has effectively asked, is that you pass it along to DES on the 15-day rather than the 25-day timetable.
But isn't that giving approval to, I'm just wondering how that.
It gives approval to that the permitting decision moves to DES without comment from us.
Does that sound right, Connor? That's what,
It sounds like it's semantics. It's without comment or without objection. Is it the same thing?
Yeah, and to your point, Doug, I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I'm sorry that I wasn't prepared to present that. I think that we've brought town projects from a permitting perspective through the Conservation Commission before. That are permit by notification bridge projects and the like. And I guess there haven't ever been other ancillary concerns. So I don't think in my experience, we've ever really delved into the yea or nay. I mean, what I'm hearing from Ken is if this is a pursuit that the select board want to endeavor, and it can get through I don't want to say force DES's hand to act quicker, but get DES to review the process in a more expedited manner, then we could do that. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Ken, but I think the concern is, does that mean in turn that the Conservation Commission supports this project in mass? And I just don't really know. I think the nuance of the last question that was asked, is it submitted or proceeding without comment or proceeding without objection? I guess that would be a decision for the majority of the Conservation Commission to decide.
I wish
I wish we had the form in front of us.
I tried calling it up, but the New Hampshire site is a bugger.
What form?
The
PDF.
The permit by notification form.
It's not as simple as that, though.
I question the thing about it because you go fast because it's an existing structure. Because you could probably make a legal argument. There is no existing structure.
Right.
There's a hole in the fence.
yeah.
And so this might be looked at by a bureaucrat in Concord as you're putting a new boat ramp into a lake that doesn't have a boat ramp, or at least doesn't have a public boat ramp. Because I think there is one at the campground, right?
Yeah, just to that point, Jack, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
That was part of our earliest conversations with the state and DES. So importantly, this grant program was for improving boat launches, period, not establishing new boat launches. And so the Governor's Office for Resource and Recovery has a staff attorney who we presented the details of this site. I actually want to say maybe it was a staff member of his, but visited the site, and they were comfortable. They in accepting the grant, in awarding the grant, acknowledge that it's an existing boat ramp to be improved. And for DES's purpose, and I don't know if or how this changes the permitting, but I think they acknowledge the same in that process. So we wouldn't have been awarded the grant if it wasn't considered an existing boat launch.
Do we know where the campground feels about this change of plans?
You can ask Connor. I think he's
Okay.
more in the.
Yeah, I was wondering that
We
as
do.
well.
We know, but I think it's more formal between Connor and
Yeah.
our side.
Connor, do you have an answer for that?
I don't. All I have is what the executive director presented at the select board meeting on Monday, and he reiterated similar concerns to the Lake Association, and a request for a 4 to 6 foot wide access ramp. I think, like I said at the beginning, the Lake Association and Camp Fireside have been consistent in their request that any improvements to the launching site be restricted to car top boats. And that's simply just been a policy disagreement between those groups and the select board. And so, there certainly haven't been any surprises from that perspective. I think what I heard from Select Person Capiello on Monday night was, from her perspective, there was a call a couple of years ago to, we've got to do something here. And now we're bringing forward something that doesn't fix everything, but it fixes some things. And, there was opposition, or a level of opposition that she wasn't anticipating. So to the question about Camp Fireside, I think they're opposed. but they haven't submitted anything officially. I have a meeting with the executive director on Monday. Part of the conversation that came up is the town wants to preserve their parking area for the beach and keep trailer boats or trailered vehicles out of there. It was brought up at the meeting. The town didn't bring it up, but it was brought up at the meeting about some of the traffic controlling signage along the fence at the campfire site area that the town hasn't put up, and to include, no trailered parking. Well, all of that parking area is the town's right away, and it doesn't appear that there's any formal agreement between the town and Camp Fireside to preserve or use that area for parking. And so I'm really hopeful that as part of this process, we can formalize that agreement. I'm sure that we have a willing select board. And like I said, the select board has maintained their commitment to preserving that area because, you park one trailered vehicle in that parking area and now nobody can park there, which I don't think anybody wants to see. So I'm hopeful that there's a process where Camp Fireside can be supportive, but I guess I'll know more on Monday.
I think about 2 minutes ago, you said Chairperson Capiello. I thought Mr. Sakosha is now chair. Am I wrong?
Oh no, if I said that, I misspoke. Former chairperson. It's one of those things like, even a retired president is still Mr. President. I think maybe I was giving her that respect on accident.
Okay.
So what do we want to do? I'm not clear on what motion might be appropriate.
Well, when there's a permit by notification, there's a thing for you to sign off on that, ready, that you representing the commission are ready to let DES act on it. And
I guess I prefer a motion to that effect. That's
I'm going to move that the commission authorize the chair to sign the proper forms to pass the permit by notification to the Department of Environmental Services.
we have a second. And no, Ann isn't voting, I guess, so it's among us. So then we don't act at all, let it lie.
I think I would really like to hear a second, and if you want to vote that down, vote it down. I made the motion. I think it should be voted on so that,
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion further?
Can I
Comment?
make one more? Can I make one? Oh,
Well, yeah,
There can be discussion.
Just an interested observer, I have a problem with the 12-foot wide boat ramp. It seems to be that we're just a bike problems. Also, that's my simplistic view of the situation. So
Yeah.
I
well, I gather the existing sort of ramp, non-ramp is wide enough for, obviously people are using it for trailers, right? So
I also have a comment.
Yeah.
In my motion, if we're going to, as it looks right now, if we're going to vote no on my motion, the select board deserves an explanation. We should.
So can I add a comment then to?
sure.
Yeah, sure.
It is my understanding, Connor, that this project needs to be completed by July 31st.
That's right.
And as much as permit by notification speeds up the process, if it slows down the process, then you're in jeopardy of not getting the project completed.
That's right.
So I'm just observing that there's a bit of pressure here on this group to help the process move forward so that the project comes in on deadline.
If I may,
Excuse me?
if if anything that I said was interpreted as pressure on this group to keep the project on schedule, please let me retract that. I think I said earlier in the process that I don't believe that the 15 or 25 days of a permit by notification will make or break the project. And so I certainly don't want any of the commissioners to feel like if they don't support this, then the project is in jeopardy of not proceeding. That's not my position, and I wouldn't want to put you all in a situation where you felt like that decision was on your shoulders.
Okay, are we ready to
That
vote?
makes it easier.
Yeah. Ready for a vote? All in favor?
Let's, Grossman, yes.
Do a roll call. Sorry.
No.
No. All right, motion doesn't pass, so I guess we'll leave it to the town manager.
Yeah, to Mr. Grossman's point, is there any additional feedback I can take back? I heard from Mr. Embry that he was concerned with the 12 feet. It wasn't clear to me if that was 2 feet, 12 feet is too small or too big, but I'm happy to take that feedback back if it's shared by the majority of the group.
Too big.
Yeah.
12 feet too big.
And I think other members of the commission should make other comments to take, for Connor to take back to the select as to why we're pushing back on this project.
I like the kayak thing though. That's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that
I
was
support
going
it.
forward.
Totally
one way or
support the
another.
kayak.
So
But I guess
other than what Gary said, what don't we like?
I would repeat the lack of detail in this plan on erosion control is problematic for me. All of the detail in this plan, if you were to scroll down, Jack, there's a lot of boilerplate. During construction, erosion control, silt fencing and stuff like that, but there's nothing in there that really addresses a permanent erosion mitigation plan.
I guess my concerns are I don't think anything in this thing is going to resolve parking, and it will get worse if there is a proper boat launch. Word will get out. I'm sure the boating communities, they've got their pages, they talk, and they will be parked. They will take the spots that belong to access for the campfire side, or they're going to get people that live along that
trouble.
because you're building something better, which gets thumbs up, but without controls for it, I would hate to see, but it could come to, wow, the police have to go by there a lot of times on the weekend to make sure that people don't block paths. And, at least has to be one lane down the damn road. The fire chiefs or the police chief are concerned. And I see that as Connor's right. It fixes some problems, but it leaves some others that it actually makes them worse. Because I said earlier, it might not change the risk of, it won't get, if we do nothing, it won't get rid of the risk of possible contamination. But more boats coming will increase the risk of contamination of the lake.
Yeah, and then I think that's,
And, I'd love to, for me, education works. A well-placed sign telling me that it's the law works for me, but we know a lot of people it doesn't because they steal our signs.
right.
They don't, not only do they not follow them, they make them into dorm room decorations.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I share some of that same concern, and particularly that there's no plan for dealing with potential contamination with invasive plants, having followed the invasive species issue in the state and knowing about the programs at other lakes. It seems kind of tough to be opening up a potential future contamination. We've seen what's happened with Swains Lake. We don't want to spread that or be part of that. So I hope that's enough comment at this point. Then we move on to the next item.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, and you're welcome to listen to the rest of it, but we understand if you need to do other things.
Much appreciated. Yeah, have a good night.
Okay, Right.
And Diane or Ron, can you hear us? Can you? Okay.
What
Not raising it.
still here? What were you inquiring about? We presume they were interested in the. There's late.
Oh, it's like a long time ago, Ron saying he could hear us, but
Oh,
I guess if he wanted
Oh,
to
they're,
do something.
they're still
Oh,
using the
yes,
chat
we
box.
hear
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Well, we do have a number of plans. Some of them are revisions of old plans, but should we try doing the simpler ones first?
I mean, not Young Road.
Yeah, basically leave Young Road.
So which one do you want to look at first?
Well, I got a little preview on a couple of them. The DeVerto one is again also a update of a previous plan. This is the one on Route 4.
Mhm.
The can't remember the little where they have access from Nottingham.
Right. Split.
Yeah.
split turn
Are you able
Instead
to
of-
pull up the?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which doc. There was a variance. I'm trying to remember which one has the.
Mm.
I can't remember which one has the.
269-2.
This is the.
I mean, can you get to it from the agenda?
Jackie, what's the password for Wi-Fi here?
Barrington, lowercase.
And it seems like they're newest from the bottom up, and they have a whole list of, all of the, sort
Yeah,
of
it should be the
chronological-
last item.
be the
on
last
that.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the dates. This was March 27th. The first one I went on didn't give me much of anything.
No.
Yeah, I don't really know what
It's just
what's
text.
new.
It's just that they continued it. This is for the variance, which requires driveways to be centered
Mhm.
in the
Yeah.
neck. And I think we looked at that picture and thought that overall their choice of moving that was prudent,
Yeah,
given the terrain they had.
right. So does it
So
seem like there's
I
anything new?
think I'll work. The fact that it's being continued to the 17th, which already happened.
Yeah,
I'm trying to figure out why we have action on this.
Yeah, the variances were already dealt with, or were they earlier than February?
They continued the application. They only had 3 members present. They wanted to have the
Yeah.
full board there.
Yeah,
I don't know what they got on the 17th. Why this plopped on and had to be part of our,
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. I don't know. Did anybody else look at it for the meeting? I know it only got to you yesterday, but
I glanced at it. I couldn't see really
yeah,
what's
new?
what was new about it. So
Yeah.
I was just changing the dates because a whole bunch of stuff got continued
Seems like it.
from the planning board because of lack of members around. I don't know if they got somebody in Florida or what.
That was all just looked perfect.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I'll inquire with Vanessa whether there's anything we need to comment on. I mean,
Or this is just her way of letting us know that these things moved out. And
Yeah.
they're keeping us in the loop.
I don't know. That isn't supposed to be the way it works, but whatever.
McKenna family, I think that was the one up on Mahalo Way.
Yeah, that one's pretty straightforward. Can you pull up the plan on that one?
When you pull it up, how do you tell where the plan, I mean, that one had like.
Well, it usually lists. Yeah, some out.
The last 4 digits are usually the date, the month, and a day. And we're usually looking at updates, so we go to them first, and anything that usually says PLN is usually got a picture.
Yeah,
The other one usually is the application
right.
with the checklist.
PLN is plan and APP is right.
Application.
Yeah.
The application, hopefully in the narrative, gives you a write-up of what they're doing. And on this one,
Are you able to put it up on the screen?
Oh, sorry.
Getting it, so.
I want this.
This one, I think, is their first.
Yeah,
It's the first go around. I mean, I haven't seen any like big and like wetland buffer.
no, yeah,
Issues or-
that was my sense of it too. They're basically taking one long lot and
Right.
splitting it into 4
Yeah.
separate
Yeah.
lots.
So what you got is 202 is over here, Mahalo Way goes in this way and then eventually turns down. Down into Green Hill.
Right, and the existing
The exist-
residence is on the left
Yeah,
there.
here's the existing residents and their septic and stuff like that. Here's the big lot they're keeping for themselves. And then they're
Great.
breaking down 3 other lots at, I think, 1.18 acres or something.
I think they're all around two acres,
Yeah, I forget what it is.
whatever, 80,000 square feet.
Yeah, but then
Anyway, they all seem to
they
be,
got more than 200 feet
Standard
frontage. They got
lots,
setbacks. They got room to
Right.
put stuff in.
right, you got that little wetland in the middle, but it doesn't seem to be.
Yeah, well, it's going to restrict where the house goes on this lot.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
Because they did declare that was their intention, to put in homes with private sewer and water.
Right, standard subdivision.
Yeah.
Yeah, so are we all good with that? Does that,
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like there's
I saw that.
anything.
I'm just waking up to realize where that is.
Yeah,
Oh,
Right.
Yeah,
yeah,
I,
yeah, it's not too far from us, as the crow flies.
yeah, I
Yeah,
knew people who lived there.
right.
Yeah, on the corner on the Green Hill is the place that used to have the horse in the barn there. I haven't seen the horse in a long time.
Yeah. Okay, so we good with that? No comment?
Yeah.
Just so we can move on here since we have others. So the other two at the bottom are the update of the turbo cam development, which we've discussed. And of course, we had Chris in here talking about the specifics. Can you bring up the,
You know which one you want to look at?
well, it's really.
I think the bottom one has got the building.
Yeah, well, there's an update. I guess it's actually in 44, 44.1. Basically, they're just putting in a new parking lot, or a couple of parking lots actually, but I don't know, you could pull up either one, I guess.
Aren't they just addressing all of the different specific variance provisions? That's all
Yeah, and there's several,
Did we send them a planning commission letter?
Yeah, we did, yeah.
I didn't see anything regarding that
oh, in the docket,
in these
the
documents.
list.
But this is for parking at the existing, they're adding.
Oh, they're existing. Okay, all right.
Well, it's not existing parking, but it's around the existing building.
Okay, I thought this was, okay, so it's not the new addition that this is.
Well, it does affect the new addition, but it doesn't change the variances of the
Okay, all right.
9.6, and
Well,
all that is
Okay.
staying the same. Are you able to pull either of them up?
I think they had some formula, they needed a certain number of parking spaces for the
Right.
size of the new building and.
Maybe I think it was the other one I saw. Right, they actually showed the new building.
Yeah, there's two, but either one should show. Can't remember which. There's one that's a nice color diagram, just can't read, but. But I guess the one thing that we might be concerned about is how it affects the public access. I did ask them about that this morning. They're now having meetings of the department heads and us, basically, to kind of go over this stuff prior to our, or it might be prior to our discussion, but it wasn't for this day.
This shows the present building, and the yellow is the area that they're.
That's the
Right,
that's the
Right,
proposal.
yeah, but if you keep scrolling down, I think there'd be one that shows the parking area. I think it's in the other, at the end of it.
Yeah, this is your application. I think the drawings are on the other,
Yeah, try the
the
other.
other file.
I didn't think it impacted that conservation.
It doesn't impact the easement area at all.
Yep.
They've been very good,
Right.
they're supposed to keep out of it. It's really just the trail network going into it.
Yeah.
That's, I just wanted to show you if we can find that map. Can you get to the other document? Yeah, I thought it was in the same one, but it's,
Mine all
it should be the one.
All
that
mine,
says
all mine
parking.
crowded together, so it was hard to figure out how many there were. I'm not sure which link when I clicked on it to look at. Come on. This thing is not. Give you a picture I can use. The problem is when they send you something that's
I
got
know.
that many PDFs, it chokes.
Yeah, you can scroll down, I think. A couple. couple of maps down. We're certainly creating a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
And this doesn't show.
Here's some new stuff.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. So just you can scroll down a little bit. No. Yeah. Oh, never. Show the corner there.
Which
No,
corner?
I'm sorry, the bottom. Or just go back to there.
You're almost
there. There we go. Okay. So this is all new.
Right.
If you've been over there, generally we drive in and there's just kind of a big vacant space there. It's-
Yeah, that building's currently, and they sometimes tell you.
And, you know, it's kind of the overflow parking. And so they want to create formal parking for like 67 cars or something there. And it shouldn't affect us because this is the trail going into the conservation area. And it would actually kind of formalize it because it'd be actual parking spaces. And they said that even when they're doing sporting events in this big field here, and they're going to be putting in a stadium, you know, bleachers for folks. I guess they feel they need it. We'll still have some spaces in case somebody wants to take a hike. So it'll actually, you know, in some ways improve the access. And then, you know, from there, the trail continues straight through. They will be having a trail from the other side of the building, the new building as well. I mean, that connects to existing trail. And they said that, you know, the public can drive in there as well on weekends and, you know, find parking. Yeah. Scroll down. Too much. Oh. In here, somewhere is where the trail continues into the woods. Hopefully not right in the wetland, but anyway, they said you could also access it from this point as well. There's parking, so you know that part of it's all seems all good. And then there's some additional parking they're putting over on this end up here, I believe is new. And that, you know, again, they need more spaces, right?
Release 11 of this.
And there was some discussion with the engineer about, well, couldn't you put them on this side of the road and then you don't have to cross the road because they're going to put in a crosswalk here and another one there. And he said, well, that would impinge on the detention pond there.
Yeah, there's probably some topography there that you'd be pointing into the pond.
Yeah, basically it wouldn't really work, you know, or you don't want to impinge on that. And then the other piece is the drainage, of course, for all this parking. This would be pavement, I assume. So they're creating a cistern over here that'll collect water actually from this building. And then there's several other, I don't know if you can scroll down again. Over here, they're going to have a detention pond and kind of the same sort of setup as they have for the new site that will also be kind of filtering the water coming off of all this parking area here. So, you know, it seems like a pretty good plan. As they said when we met with them before, it's all, you know, off shelf kind of stuff because of the sensitivity of the wetland and all. So they seem to think it would all work pretty well. So again, I'm not sure there's much else we need to comment on. Does anybody have?
Yeah, I know they made a specific statement
Comments?
about nothing encroaches on the easement.
Yeah, it's all pretty much away from it, or it's not impacting it.
It's just it might throw a curve into people if they go in there after many years. And
Yeah.
there's another building parking lot here. Where do I go? But no one of them will probably put signs up.
Yeah.
But I assume we're still going to be restricted to weekend hiking only.
Hey Doug, what's
Yeah.
I just noticed, what's the, is that a new septic for the new building that's in the bold dashed line right at the bottom? It's a square box.
Oh, this
Right here.
here.
Yeah.
It's like a gazebo above the.
Oh, that's that
above the
amphitheater.
seating.
Yeah, that's the amphitheater. Yeah, sorry.
You had already mentioned
Yeah, I
that.
didn't.
No, he mentioned the seating, but not the gazebo.
Yeah. So they're trying to enhance the campus, you know,
Yeah.
to make it more
What if that would just become a smoking
user
area?
friendly.
Jackie mentioned weekend access only, but with the disc golf thing that they put in, or is that not during the week?
Well, I don't know if it's employees, I guess, obviously they can access it.
If they can, I think they wanted outsiders not to be coming in and digging there, which are obviously good in parking spots.
But they opened it up to this golf association. They're gonna
Oh, they
have
did?
other-
So they are outside.
But are they doing it weekends only, or I don't know?
Well, that's what you just kind of piqued my curiosity.
Yeah.
No, that's gonna be, all, that won't be just weekend, that'll be
How many holes do they have?
9.
I guess.
Well, presumably they have some kind of.
And we
provision
we
for
okayed
that.
it, so we.
Yeah, it's not really our business, I guess, whether,
It doesn't really.
how they,
That's
how
how
they,
right?
what they access it. Does anybody else have any other comments, questions? So we're good with that, no comment? Okay. All right, so the last one, the big one, is Young Road, and if you've got to look at the plan at all, you can see it's totally revamped. It actually looks more like what a conservation subdivision ought to look like. And I spent quite a bit of time going over it. Paul Panish looked over it as well.
You want to complain about, oh, you can't see it, sorry.
Yeah, if you could pull it up, because people can see it. And I believe this is just kind of a preview plan. It's not like the final
Like they're
product.
just throwing a sort of a new option
Yeah,
out there.
just to see what.
Was it, do you, I can't remember. Do you know if offhand the number of lots is still?
Yeah, that's the thing. They're sticking to their guns on the the yield plan came out with 23. I asked Vanessa about it this morning. And she said that that seems to be there's
Non-negotiable.
yeah, non-negotiable. They've already, even though of course they've rejiggered some of the regulations, evidently they're not going to apply to this unless maybe if it drags out another year. But as far as she understood, they were still able to do 23. Our question is whether it's really appropriate. And one of the challenges here is that the site over to the right on the map is 20 lots, and they're only supposed to do 18. But the regs do say that the planning board can decide to let them have a couple extra lots if they think it'll be better for the overall project. That's obviously a judgment call. I mean, yeah, there's no way to define that. So that's one issue that they need a variance. The other one is the setback from the road. I think they have the variances they got previously from the ZBA, a year ago, more than a year ago now. And so there's a question of whether they still apply or they'd have to reapply for those. So that's, and they kind of admit that there are things that need to be worked out. Like I said, it's not a final plan. They just want to get a sense of whether the planning board and us, I guess, think it's preferable to the previous plan. The big difference you can see is that this open area, again, could you scroll it up a little? Or make it smaller, maybe. No. You've got this big open area in between the two development areas.
Significantly different.
Yeah, so it's quite a bit. If you remember, there were houses all along here. There were 10, the final number was 10 different driveways. In this case, there's just 2. So obviously that's an improvement traffic-wise. This, of course, is some of the most sensitive area where we thought there'd be the most runoff potential into the prime wetland. And they got rid of the back lots, of course. They were kind of stacking them up too. And they would have been, I think, closer to the wetland as well on steeper grades. Now, what they're saying is if they don't get their 20 lots here, they're going to want to put 2 more, take 2 from there and put them in here or in here. So, we'd be back to that same issue again. So it's kind of a tough, Paul suggested they were kind of, pressuring the planning board to say, well, if you don't like this, and if none of this flies, we're going to go back to the original plan. So,
You don't want to put up Paul's notes?
Yeah, I guess we could get into it. I mean, it
I don't know if that was your segue or not.
yeah, I suppose it makes sense.
So
Yeah,
that's a total of 23.
Yeah.
yeah, three to the last.
Three on one side and three on the other.
Yeah.
Better.
I probably can't read that, but is there a way to make it narrower? Yeah, like I said, he questioned this issue of the variances, that we want to oppose any new variances, or certainly that they don't get to just reuse the old one.
He notes on the project plan imply that previous waivers granted by the ZBA should apply to the new one. Since the plan has changed completely, the old waiver should be considered void and a new waiver being reapplied for.
Now, the other big issue here is how it's designated, and it was kind of news to me, interesting for us folks, that they're actually proposing, they say, a condominium association, and these wouldn't be individual lots. Both clusters, it'd be considered single home condominium lots, which basically means there's no boundaries really. It's just one big amorphous area. And so Paul wasn't clear about that either. I kind of gotten some clarification from Vanessa that they are looking at going that route, which means they can have much smaller lots if you were, I don't know if we could go back to the map, or maybe I think we've covered everything Paul had to say, but one of the issues again was the size of the lots and the setbacks and all that.
Yeah, I think he's getting hung up. They said condominium style. I think the fact is they're all going to be single family dwellings.
Yeah.
So
But it's still
if
considered
there's going to be an association, that might be good, because there might be somebody that they can go to and say, are you guys handling any problems that you have? There'll be some turnover from when they built it to it. There'll be another organization.
Well, they have to have a homeowners association. I mean, that's what's been done elsewhere.
Yeah, what Jack is saying, this is a greater need for it and a greater likelihood that an election happened because
that could be.
because they're all so close together.
Right.
They better well talk to each other.
Yeah, I suppose there's some argument there.
Like we do in our neighborhood, right?
Did Paul note, is it the three remote lots? Are those also condominiums?
Yeah, they are. They're obviously bigger lots, but they still
They don't
consider.
meet the-
And the other factor there is, and I was reading over the regs, they're not allowed to mix and match. They got to be either all condo or all single lots. Some of these over here are like they're less than half an acre. I mean, they're really tiny. So
He's got a thing here where he's concerned about whether they should be showing lot lines, or are they going to be on like common land?
right, yeah,
Because it changes the rules as far as zoning.
Yeah.
setbacks and all that.
Each one have their own drainage zone.
I know, but a lot of those
Septic,
condominium.
yeah. It's not clear either. I mean, some of these kind of developments they
All the
would have.
ones we
Yeah, they would.
At the same time.
That's not clear.
Because
I
you're not,
think that would be
you're not responsible for
Yeah.
a lot if it's a condominium.
Let's try to have one conversation.
It would be nice to know about the septic.
Yeah, and again, I think those are all details still to be worked out.
Okay, all right.
But,
Okay.
but obviously that's, they of course say, yes, we will comply with whatever state and local rules.
So here's the thing, I'm hearing what Paul's saying and what other people are saying. But what I'm saying is that they finally paid attention when we, and Paul especially, said, cluster. It's clustered now.
Yeah, and I'm concerned about.
And we should acknowledge and appreciate that.
And I'm concerned about having all those people getting T-boned trying to get onto Young Road is somewhat reduced.
Yeah, but
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And
The traffic isn't.
I wouldn't like to see us make the perfect the enemy of the good.
Yeah,
There's a lot of good here.
and presumably there's less pavement. I mean, even though that's like a real road, it's still probably gonna be less.
Exactly right.
11
So
driveways.
I don't say we should give a full-throated endorsement to the whole thing, but we should say what we appreciate is
Yeah.
that it's clustered. We appreciate there being more conservation land, less blacktop,
Yeah,
something to that effect. I
yeah,
think.
that's what I was thinking too. If you go back to the map, other really important point that I didn't go over. I don't know if you can get to that same map again. Yeah. You notice there's coloration here. The deal is they want to have a no access or no outside access area around the residences. And that's the part in green over on both of these. And then the area in pink would be public access. And, I'm not sure we need access to some of these spots. That's all wetlands anyway. But clearly up in the area abutting, this is Goodwill up above us here. That would make sense to have access into there.
This is probably obvious, but there's a trail on the right-hand side of that running right through there.
Right. So the existing trail
You can see
would
the
be
rest of it.
wiped out.
Right.
But the existing trail
It
isn't
would probably
much.
be a social trail for the people who live there.
Well, no. I mean, this trail will go away because it's literally under people's houses.
Yeah,
What they're planning to do, I'll get to, they're planning to create a public access at the end of the cul-de-sac here with parking spaces, which they acknowledge that there should be parking. And then they're going to reroute this trail around the corner here and have it shimmy over to the existing trail. Now, on the map, that looks okay. It's not great, but it works. The problem is this is literally right on the shoreline of the beaver pond. And if you know about beaver ponds, they kind of shrink and expand and move around. And the beavers do what beavers do. And the dam is like right here. I mean, it's right below the trail. And there isn't really a decent access. We probably need to build a bridge to do
Or
it
they have to
right.
encroach on that green line.
And it encroaches on basically this people's backyard, front yard.
Yeah.
And this house is only 100 feet from
What are you
the.
saying? What are you doing
Yeah.
in my backyard?
Yeah.
Lady,
It's a
you gotta
very-
get some curtains.
Yeah. So that's kind of screwy from my perspective, and actually knowing a little bit of that, what that looks like over there. Now, what I thought, well, just generally, this green no-go area is kind of screwy. I mean, I don't know why they made it so wide here. This basically covers the whole water channel here, the wetland. There's a beaver dam, a beaver pond up here, and then the big wetland down here. And so I think it's, pretty much a perennial stream through there, but it's wetland. Anyway, I don't know why they gave that to the community land, or they think that would be attractive to go walk out in the wetlands. There really isn't much upland to deal with.
It's saying we don't want people there.
Yeah, and that what I thought it would, just logically, it make more sense to draw the lines on either side of the wetland, or the water course, and say, you guys can have that side, this side.
So
as far as-
public ducks can get into the wetland.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's not like we want to control the land, but it just makes more sense to have that be a public, or that we have monitoring, whatever, control over.
This is gonna be sort of like Breezy Way, for the Village Place area. Although they don't put parking in. I know when we go there to do cleanup, and Ann has been on some of these. They sometimes people come out and ask, well, what are you doing parking on the circle? They're like, well, we're fixing the trail, and we're fixing your end of the trail, so it's easier to do it from here than to hike in from basically Milos. But I would.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting that if we got the parking spots, like
Yeah.
you said, because once they get in there, they could end up with a trail that's underwater.
Right. Yeah, it just seems like that's kind of problem. Now, I thought about that, and I was thinking about this open space here and maybe making it, because otherwise it's not very accessible. It's a steep slope, and then all it does is go down to the wetland. And there is a nice little, stream running down there. But I was thinking if they moved this in a little bit, you could have access directly from Young Road, or have a parking area along the road, and then hike in this way and cross over the creek there, and then you're not dealing with the beaver dam and
We probably
all
have to build a
that.
bridge, but the question.
Yeah, but I'm saying it would be less,
Oh, yeah.
probably less trouble.
What, I'm not familiar with it. Is it like higher on the wetlands, or it's low? Because if that's gonna keep it
Slopes
screening.
down.
Yeah, all right, so it'll contain it such that we could, if a bridge was to be built, it wouldn't have to be huge.
Yeah, yeah. It just seemed like it's less trouble or, costs. I mean,
Dumb question. What is the green area?
that's the community land that's not for public access. It would be for resident access
So it's still
only.
Woodland area within LCA
It's still
versus
conserved.
pink is
It's
open
still
space.
conserved.
Well, it's not clear any of this has an easement on it. They didn't really say anything about easements per se, but in theory, it's
Yeah,
conserved,
well, if you look right
It's
here,
common land for the.
they're calling open
Yeah.
space easement one, but
Right.
I don't know if that's a legal term or
Yeah.
something that they.
Do they
So
say
they,
easement?
I would assume the residents can't go out there and dump their trash.
Yeah, but then again, it comes down to the homeowners association, the condos. They would have to enforce that and we couldn't do much about it. I should mention, I did get an email from John Wallace who looked this over and he said, homeowner association bad, we dealt with this, we've been there before. It's not a good system. I mean, possibly a condo association could be better, but we don't
Well,
really know.
This is new territory,
Yeah,
and I'd
for
be
sure.
inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
On some of that.
Yeah.
So where are we?
Well, it's not coming up, it's coming up a week from
May 7th.
Tuesday, May
Yeah.
7th. And we should have if we want to make some comments now, we should get them in by Tuesday, this Tuesday. Get them circulated properly. I guess Paul got a start on some comments. I mean, do you want to leave it up to Paul and me to come up with?
Well,
Yes,
we should put some positives in.
Yeah, I agree.
I do. I'd like you to lead with what we like about it.
Right.
And in terms of what we don't like about it, I don't want to say, we're going to kill it.
It's not a-
We recognize that it's a work in progress and we hope that some of our further concerns can be met.
Yeah, and like this thing about, attempt to put pressure on by threatening, I think those words should be revised.
Again, this was just a very.
Yeah.
Soften.
Yeah, that won't be the final wording.
And I guess I have to do a little more reading, but I got the impression that they were talking like it was going to be a condominium type organization, but they are in fact single family dwellings. And it doesn't appear.
Detached condominium.
Yeah, that's what they call
But-
it. Attached.
What we don't know is, are they going to share like water or sewer? Because we didn't see anything.
Again, we'd like to know more. but-
Yeah,
But good start, Chris.
yeah. And I did,
That's
I
why-
was here this morning and I did say, it's better. It's more like what we
Yeah.
had originally envisioned. But, we'll have more to say, so. And about the access trail, did folks agree that that's kind of problematic the way they?
I've never been there, so it's hard for me to
Yeah.
grasp your.
You might have-
No, I mean, if you
might
can
as well.
zoom in on that map, it literally. The
Is this the dam where the Beaver Dam Trail we go down to?
Yeah, it's not.
Dam, because there's another dam way over here, bigger one.
This is the big one. Well, there's a smaller one, and then there's the bigger one, which is over
Yeah, the bigger one is south,
here.
which is over here.
But if you look at this map, I mean, just right here, they literally show the trail going into the beaver pond. I mean, it's going into the wetland boundary, and the wetland boundary is basically the edge of the beaver pond.
Sounds like all they did was
So-
try to pick up the old trail, though. I mean,
Right. Oh, yeah.
get there.
It's just an end run around this property. But again, why this swath here exists, I don't know if it's just they had a certain setback thing they needed. They have to be 100 feet back from the line of the property, but it's not clear why they need a green swath. I guess they don't want people's backyards to be.
Did the old trail go
Access.
through the beaver pond? Or-
Well, the deal is the beavers expanded the pond. It used to be up and dry. I remember going in there finding trilliums and stuff, and then they mowed the whole area down, in forestry project about 17 years ago, I guess, and they went right down to the edge of the pond. I mean, it sure looked like a violation to me, but I'm just I was just a citizen back then. But anyway, it's pretty open. It's growing back in. But the point is, it's very wet for a good stretch of that area. And it just looks like nobody went to check it out, in person. They just sort of drew a line. So, I'm just saying that's kind of
Yeah.
tricky. I don't know how many people would use it anyway, but obviously if we're going to go to the trouble of creating a parking lot, it'd be nice to have it be.
Well, in a way, if the trails remain dry enough to get in, that portion of the Skidder Road is painfully obvious. We don't even have to blaze it. So it goes down
Yeah.
to Ross Road.
You mean this?
No, I'm talking
On
about
the other
in
side.
Goodwill.
Yeah.
What the Trails Committee is planning is that we want to cut a trail from the main Skidder Road, the Goodwill Trail, over to the Beaver Dam. So we'd be coming from the other side, so people can
Right.
see it. We also want to cut something from the south end and go up to the ledges areas, the high areas you walk
Right.
through on Goodwill Trail
Yeah, create
to
a
provide
loop.
a loop. So you don't want, if you're in the south end, all you got is walk
There and
back.
Yeah.
So
And there was a trail previously in there,
Yeah.
but it's
I
been a
think I
long
might have
time.
walked this thing once.
Yeah.
If it's the one, then it might be the smaller dam. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well,
Either way.
Yeah, and there was a bridge there. I mean, there was a snowmobile trail. In fact, that's mainly who was
Yeah.
using this, 20 years ago. It was the Snowmobile Association. And so they had a significant bridge over that creek. It was a little further over. And again, like I said, the beaver kind of reclaimed the neighborhood.
I just tell them they don't need to extend that trail because it's already where this.
Well, I think it would be good to
reestablish it somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be good for the neighborhood and all, which they seem to at least want to. You notice this little green swath in here. This is a little right of way for the neighborhood to be able to walk into there, whatever. I mean, there's not much there, but they wanted to give them access, and so that's part of the idea. And it is in the list of items for observation subdivision.
Now, I know we got snowmobiles on the Goodwill Trail. I just don't know. I'm assuming that they come up from Ross Road area to get in.
Yeah.
Determine this
It's
doesn't
just
work.
they go over to Swains Lake, I guess. I think they still use that route.
Do you want a sidewalk? Want to ask for one?
It does seem like it would be worthwhile since it is getting to
Well,
be
Throw it in there.
walking. Yeah, okay, so do folks agree that
Yeah,
would be worth, I don't want you to just go on mine. I haven't been there in a while myself. Paul lives right near there, so there's more access. But we could certainly put one together. I guess you're talking about doing it with Chris Berry and
With the
or
planning
somebody. The planning board.
a notice sidewalk.
Yeah, I don't recall that. I don't think that. I think that we would have known if they had offered one previously, right? Don't they usually?
The Conservation Commission can make the request.
Yeah.
You can say no, but make.
Well, as a minimum, we want somebody, we pitch the
The
plan
request
to
is
come with
made,
us.
request is made to the planning board.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
You'd like to go out there and look, you guys want to come?
yeah.
Basically, that's what that is.
I don't know if the planning board wants to go out and walk, but we do.
Well,
They should.
if we're going, they're going. It's their walk, really.
Yeah.
They're the decision makers.
Right.
I have a
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Well,
ahead.
in the beginning of this project, there was a furious outcry from the neighbors and the butters. How are they feeling about these new plans? They look a heck of a lot better to me.
Well, I doubt they've seen it unless they, were perusing the docket and see, literally only came up in the last couple of
Well, the
days.
abutters, I mean, like the Everly family.
Yeah.
have probably seen this too.
I expect it's getting around.
With the abutters?
Yeah. I think they're
The
getting,
abutters wouldn't get the plans, the new plan.
No,
They're-
they have to.
Well, this is on the town website.
right,
Yeah,
Well, yeah, now it is.
but you gotta be able to find it.
Yeah, and you
Because
gotta know.
the group that's concerned probably knows if I were to find the project.
Yeah.
I find it, I don't think I've ever seen it before where they put all the information on all the abutters right on the
Yeah.
drawings.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
they know about the
Yeah.
abutters for sure.
Right.
And for some of them, their view isn't gonna change much because it's gonna look out into the pink areas.
Yeah,
But
it's got to be an improvement. I would guess just
I don't
looking
know
at the
about
map.
Brian, I mean, he's to the right, he's
Yeah.
on the right, so.
Yeah, he may be less.
Yeah, he might be
thrilled about
less
it.
than,
Yeah.
but
Could be close to the cluster.
he is Right on the right of that.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, that's immediate butter.
All right, so
Um,
that's settled.
Well, I should mention one other thing. The other thing they agreed to, and evidently they're doing it like as we speak or this month, is looking at for vernal pools.
Mhm.
And if I recall, I think the ones they at least showed photos that looked like vernal pools were over in this area. There might have been one over here as well. But you can imagine that could really impact the development if, I think, at least in theory, if you find a vernal pool, it basically doubles the buffer, right?
Right.
50 to 100 feet.
Yep.
And if you did that, like to this lot, that house kind of goes away. And maybe this one as well, depending on where the vernal pool is.
Get down to 20 in the end.
Yeah. And then they'll complain that they got to move it again.
No,
So,
they'll put one, they'll
yeah, they'll
move
move the
a
house.
few more onto the
So I
road.
just wanted to throw that out there that could happen.
Sure.
And we should know within a couple months.
It is what it is.
Yeah. So, there are improvements being made for sure.
Yes.
I guess we should thank them for following
They should thank us
planning
for
board. Yeah. Sure.
bringing them to the light.
I mean, it's funny because this is what I envisioned, would be not best case scenario, but at least a more
better.
manageable
Better. Yeah.
plan. I mean, just walking the land, that's the area that is most amenable to sticking houses.
Yeah.
So, okay, so if folks are okay with that,
Yeah.
Paul and I will
Great job.
work on a
Yeah.
thing.
Good.
Okay. I think that's all.
I've got something, if I can go under other business, that
Sure.
may probably come before the
Yeah,
commission.
well, we have a couple other old
Oh,
business.
okay, you have old business.
Why don't we do that first? Yeah, we dealt with the boat launch, I don't think, just monitoring.
Yeah, well, okay, a couple things I'm monitoring. Gift to hand out to everybody here, everything you want to know about.
The newest one?
Well, no, this is not a hiking list. This is a list of basically all of our
Property.
easements and all the kind of the detail. We've talked to, we report to, where they're at, address, just all sorts of information about that. So that's just, I'll send you a PDF file of this. I'll kind of keep it faster. So you can have one for your records. And you can have that copy. We finished monitoring the falls of the isinglass. Jack and I did last Sunday at 2:00. We walked it. Nothing was found. I haven't completed the report yet because I had this massive problem with Gaia, which somehow it took me hours and hours to finally get my ability to get the private property lines back.
Right.
That layer disappeared.
Yeah.
It took me 25, you can't talk to anybody. So it's like 25 emails one day. I finally got it back. Then there's a printing issue. So that's the other thing I want to talk about. So I talked to Selt, my new friend at Selt, Kathy Bates. And they use a program called ArcGIS. And I looked it up and it's a great program. And they spend a lot of money for it. It costs them $3,000 a year or something like that for it. So however, I actually applied as an individual, though I commissioner of the Barrington Conservation Commission, and told them what my needs were and filled out an application form. And the guys came back and they said they'll give me the whole plan for $100.
No kidding.
Yeah, just one user, $100.
That's
So
not much
I'm-
more than Gaia.
So I'm gonna go ahead and get it, and there's a 26-day period for the trial. But they're tremendous in terms of training. I mean, you can talk to trainers, you have any problems, you got somebody talking to the reporting capabilities of it are vastly superior to Gaia. You really get a nice outlay of a report with proper longitude and latitudes with the summary. Like John Wallace's reports, embarrassed by my reports because they look crappy compared to John Wallace's reports. So I'm going to get this program, go from there. And one other thing.
Yeah, just before you go to the other thing, Paul Panish is making pretty similar inquiries. Just yesterday, we did a walkout in Satwasser with the is the Forest Society. you know,
Okay, Forest Society,
You know, they're the ones that control that. And they use, I think it's the same one, or there's like a pro version or something. And we didn't talk about, you know,
Yeah.
how to get it and all, but anyway, he had quite a conversation with her. And I'm just saying, he's kind of going down the same route.
Yeah.
So it'd be good if you guys
Okay, I'll talk to Paul.
connect on that.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'd be excited to hear that.
I'm kind of excited about this, so I'm definitely charge ahead. See. Well, I'm just fed up.
Are you making a donation or should we ask our trade?
Well, let me get it done. Let's make certain it works first, that I could.
Oh, or-
And then I'll bring it
yeah,
back.
So you got a time to evaluate it and kill it if you don't like it?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, no, my son who does this professionally also looking up into mine.
So when you use, yes, yeah.
He's a user of it. It's brilliant.
Give me a phone number, maybe you'd be a good person to talk to about, you know, if I need to get.
I will.
But I would, but
We've got a
the,
good-
but the, the communication aspect is everything.
Want
Anyway.
that number right now?
Sure.
603
Wait a second.
491 6147.
What, 6? 1 7?
6147.
So we kept it.
Joe Morris number.
Now, the one more thing that for a new friend Katie Bates from Stowe, sent me a letter, sent Doug a letter, and indicating that we have, basically look at that. She told me that we need to monitor yearly for Duck Chuck, Coachman, Newhall, River's Edge, and Whitney. Now, Whitney Pratt is already on our list for every year, but those other 4 were not every year. And so had originally had them scheduled for every other year. But anyway, it ramps up the number of, I have to redo the schedule again to add these in, so I get them all covered. Now, fortunately, I had I think every one except Whitney. Well, no, I had Whitney scheduled. So I think I actually have these already scheduled this year, except Newhall, which we completed last year and I wasn't going to do this year. So now I'll have to add Newhall into our list. So I might have to add 1 in for this year, but it does increases the number of hikes or monitorings we have to do to a year or two. I think about 16. We have 25 properties, but we got to do 16. It works out like I do 16 this year. I just want you to know that. So,
Well, I have a comment.
yeah.
You having fun?
Oh, yes, that'd be so much fun.
Okay,
So
so
much-
here's
a lot damn more.
the thing. We have $600,000 in the bank. When this gets to be a burden, we can hire people to do it. We have enough money to do that now. And
also-
many conservation commissions do that. There's no shame in it.
Yeah, I know John Wallace got hired to do like around Round Pond.
Yeah, he
because
does.
it was for
He-
Rochester's water supply. He got paid for that.
He was doing others as well, but.
I think he's not doing them anymore. He just told me he's not doing that one in Rochester. He just completed it again.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
But I'm just saying the precedent is there.
Yeah, and what happened years ago when John was chair, he was also doing doing all of them. And the commission could tell it was a bit of a burden. And we said, John, we're gonna pay you. Well, it didn't work because John just donated the money back, but, with that kind of bankroll, we can do it. It wouldn't be that expensive.
Well, I know Gary's also looking into another idea too.
Right.
Well, I've been trying to recruit people from Turbo Camp. That's my biggest thing.
Oh, yeah.
I've tried to do.
Yeah, we talked
And
about it.
Melanie Hughes. Yeah, and there's also, that's the other thing, that ArcGIS also has, I believe there's an additional program that costs extra money for, for drone surveillance. And CELT does drone surveillance, and they have their schedule. Instead of every year, they monitor every 3 years, but for the 2 years they do CELT, or they do aerial drone monitoring. So they're requiring us to do it every year because we don't have a drone monitoring. So that's another possibility down the road. But right now, let me get this one in my belt, and need to start hiring some people, great.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we have, this Saturday, we're doing Coachman, 9 AM. And
It's on the north end of Coachman and through.
yeah, right at the north end, right there by Swoop Pond Road.
I did that with you, Dan. I got my feet
It
wet.
is really must pretty wet.
Yeah.
Boy, it was mucky
Oh,
up.
that's-
The isinglass mucky too. In fact, I still be stuck there. Jackie pulled me out.
Well, it's weird because the top level, there was enough breeze starting, the leaves dried out, but underneath was like 10 inches of mud.
So Coachman, and then I was planning on doing Schultz Riviera Tuesday. But unless we hear from Amy, I'm gonna just know that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what people think about, I mean, it
And
seems
the-
like we don't wanna,
I think we need to
encourage-
hear from her.
Yeah,
I
it
think
would
just
be
show up. I think.
yeah.
Oh, she's still asking for the,
Well,
The clause.
She hasn't responded.
She hasn't responded.
Send a nice long letter,
Doug's nice,
please, you know.
nudging letter. And the next one is on the 4th of May, and that's the Littlefield thing. And that's a really cool hike. It's fairly, it's an elevation up and down there, but that's where the new, Phelps new Malago, that's where the headwaters Malago. Bedford. It's a really,
Yeah,
it's an amazing, beautiful wetland.
what was the date on that?
The 4th. 9 on Saturday.
Star Wars Day.
We'll leave it to, that's it for now.
Well, I think I sent an email, if you saw, about whether you could, speaking of short, reducing the list, combining, Schultz Carbone with Schultz.
Well, I talked, you kind of didn't think that was a great idea, right?
Oh, no,
Or you
no,
did?
but that was, I can't remember now, there was, had this issue already come up with the new Leger?
No, it had not. No, this just recently.
Because they're, I mean, they're.
So I
connected.
separated the two, because I thought maybe.
Leger's a big walk, though.
Yeah, but, yeah,
That's what.
Both
that's-
sides of the
that's kind of what I
yeah.
thought you said. It's quite a long walk,
Right.
so
Yeah.
It's a long one.
I'm for kind of like
yeah,
shorter.
it's just the other one is really
Yeah,
small.
you can't cross the bridge anymore.
Right.
You will
Yeah,
have
to drive around.
Yeah, so that's, I think we just separate them. I haven't separated now, but.
Yeah, it just seemed like the other one was relatively small, so that can be done.
The carbone one is the easy.
Yeah. Yeah, but if you want to keep them separate, that's, okay. I just thought if we wanted to reduce the burden somehow.
I think the problem is that Jared's got, both sides.
Yeah, it's quite a bit, if you're trying to cover the whole area. In any case, I'm willing to work on that with you, so. Assuming we get the date squared away, you're back from it.
Yeah, I hope you response to you. I think your letter would be much nicer than the one I was gonna send her. So
Never threatening.
I was just gonna tell her, oh, okay, well, let's sit and she'll hear from our county attorney.
Yeah.
Go from there.
It's funny.
Yeah, we'd rather not.
Yeah, the money we're gonna expend just to get the right to do this, geez.
So
Oh, before you,
if you have one,
one more thing, I mean, maybe I'm on the wrong track, but one of the things that Lori Summer told us about last time, her follow-up email, was a grant program for stewardship of lands. When I hear stewardship, I think monitoring as well as trails. Anyway, it seemed like it ought to apply to monitoring, so I was wondering if, we might want to put together a proposal to get some money for monitoring.
I didn't call her, but I read
Yeah,
it looked to me like it was for acquisition. Yeah,
I don't know why they
But
call
I-
it stewardship.
The issue break out stewardship is now, they want it to be part of acquisition. You have,
But it's
even
a
their
separate
proposals, but
line item.
you have to put a line item in for the money for
Didn't we get some money for stewardship from Zone or?
Yeah,
We did.
Green Hill.
Yeah, so what I'm saying, we've already got.
if you want to apply for it, I mean, we gotta apply for them, but.
Yeah, it's June. Well, it opens May 5th and then it closes June.
I don't think it's too bad a form.
Yeah.
Like, it's too terrible.
But I mean, if folks think we have enough money, I mean, I don't know what all we might put together.
never.
Yeah,
There's not too much
Yes, remember, we still got
Well,
a dam hanging over our head and I
Yeah,
still,
that's true.
don't we still owe, I think, we gave 50 to
Is it Landry?
Landry?
Yes, you.
No, that's covered. We did the 100 grand. But I
I don't
should
think we,
say,
yeah, but we haven't cut the check yet, I don't think yet.
I thought we did. No.
Treasurer would know.
In any case, if this grant money, look at it. And we-
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I'll inquire, see if, hey, does this cover monitoring?
Yeah.
Or, what does it cover? Just seemed like it was worth following up on that. So, okay. Here's,
So, this isn't an attempt to go back to thinking about the boat launch again. But I think Connor should have, if he's hoping to have the chair sign off on the permit by notification, he should have put the permit form in front of you, Doug.
yeah.
And I downloaded it. It wasn't hard to find to check.
Well, I found a form, but it was more like for homeowners and their lots. I had seen it before because I almost considered doing one, but
It's a permit by notification, but the key part of it is that there needed to be a description of what they were doing, exactly what they were doing that requires a permit.
Yeah.
Because certain things are irrelevant. I mean, obviously, traffic is irrelevant to a wetland permit. And probably not even milfoil is relevant to a wetland permit. I don't know what is relevant, and what isn't. But that, what they wanted to do that needed a permit needed to be described. And then signing it would have been, I, Doug Bogan, representing the Conservation Commission, waive my right to intervene. That's the language of the permit.
Yeah.
So if you're, and so if, since you didn't waive your right to intervene, the assumption in 25 days from when they put that in could be somebody from DES calls Doug Bogan and says, oh, so you want to intervene? What do you got? But you haven't even seen the project yet.
Yeah, all right.
And so Connor really needs to show you that form and for you to look at that and say, yep, I know what I'm going to tell them. And that's all I've got.
Yeah.
That's another job for the chair.
Yeah. Well, but I thought for permit by notification, we don't necessarily need to sign.
Right, exactly. But if you don't sign it,
Leave it open.
you have not waived your right to intervene. So in 25 days, again, the DES person might give you a ring. And so,
Well, we don't.
and again, before you, since you're not going to sign it, you haven't really been asked to sign it because Connor didn't put it in front of you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I literally don't know what.
He said a lot and he's very, he speaks beautifully and all that, but he didn't give you the details.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe you want to ask him for that. Maybe not. I don't.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's-
given
that's-
the action, the vote of the commission, I don't feel empowered to sign it. At this
No,
point.
you're right, but you should, I think you want to know what you were on signing.
Yeah.
And frankly, the commission should know what
Yeah.
you're not signing. And I may have overreached in saying you should sign it.
is this the form?
And he was wrong about, yeah, and if you go a few pages in,
Unfortunately, it's not shoreland though.
Yeah.
This is a wetland. They're
All right,
definitely.
that's one permit.
Well, and it sounds like it ought to have.
and it's similar, it has some boxes for describing what you're doing.
Right.
And then at the end, it says, as the person in charge of the Conservation Commission, I waive my right to intervene.
Yeah.
And he was wrong about 15 and 25. It's actually 10. If
Yeah.
you sign it, they're looking at it in 10 days.
Right.
Um,
But like you said, it's not that big a difference, or, or at least he didn't think it was gonna screw it up.
but, right, but,
But
I don't
they
think-
might-
I don't think he gave us all the information that should have been available.
Yeah, yeah,
And I just,
I wondered about that.
and going back, I wished I'd said, we can't even talk about this because we don't know why you want a permit. We know you want to build a boat launch, but we don't know
Yeah.
exactly why that requires requires a permit. In the technical sense. We're gonna do this, you can't do this unless you have a permit.
Yeah.
That's all I've got.
Yeah, no, it's helpful. Appreciate it.
My sighting is that there were pigeons on it.
Oh.
I guess we're at, well, anything from the Trails Committee before we do sightings?
No,
No?
we're gonna do a verbal.
Bird walk, right?
Yeah.
What,
Okay.
what date is that?
So I did just the form.
But it should have specifics about the project, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah, so I mean, that's just a generic form.
right.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether, I got the wet one. See that open box?
Right. Yeah.
That's where
People are,
it should have been filled in
right.
and said, this is what that box there.
Well, I would think Connor must have it or have access to it, if, you know. He
Unless-
sent this to me 2 weeks ago, actually.
Right, so that text should have been what was in front of us.
Yeah, because one thing's here, it says repair or replacement of existing legal boat launch. I would question whether ours is either existing or legal, but
Yeah.
But that's,
if he got direction from the state.
You got to be action from DES instead of what?
Well, and it's interesting because it's state money.
Well-
There's, you know what I mean? It's money coming from the state to do what would be considered a beneficial project for the state.
Yeah, they own the
Residents.
lakes. Makes sense, they said.
Exactly.
And I guess I was impressed that somebody came out and looked at it so that they understood that it's really changing from a hole in the fence to a boat ramp. But if, I guess, I'm glad I'm not signing this form if I check that box off. Because he said it was for fixing or improving boat ramps. Okay.
Yeah, well, I don't think we
A lot of
can
work.
comment at this point on details, but. All right, so I'll borrow Connor and stuff like that. Anything else? Notice it's just about 9, so it's time to go home, but, your sightings, it's pigeons?
well,
Turkeys.
doves,
Doves?
they were doves, not
Ah,
pigeons. I'm from the Bronx.
yeah.
What are the ducks with the little puffs behind?
White or,
They're in a pond,
um,
Oh, yeah, they got a
little something.
like hairlike there, yeah.
Mergansers.
Are they?
I don't know. I don't
yeah,
know.
I
what
mean, it
ducks
could
are.
be mergansers or more like wood ducks. You know what a wood duck, they're kind of small.
Yeah.
Mergansers tend to be
Yeah.
kind of long.
These were bigger. They were little kids.
There have been, the ringneck doves, but I don't think they have. Duck.
That's it. And I can't talk about the 3 deer that were behind my house that came, because you know.
No,
But the turtles are out, so it's good that the signs are.
yeah, yeah.
I haven't seen
the
one
last
yet.
one.
Oh, there were 4 or 5 of them on that little log, just near Brewster Road,
Oh, the
going to
turtles,
the
yeah.
dump this morning. So
Uh-huh.
I got my
Transfer station.
red fox and fisher cats in my meadow. I have no turkeys and.
Oh, the fox got them.
Probably why.
I think what they, the fisher cats got them. Stay away from
I saw a couple of hawks. I think they were Broadway hawks, but it might have been a red shouldered, but they were going at each other. One of them was dive bombing the other one because it was in his territory. I was kind of excited, walking away. But hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more birds coming in next few weeks. So keep
Yeah.
your eyes open.
Put in the hummingbird.
Yeah, we saw a hummingbird. Yeah.
First week of May, so it's gonna happen. I have my feet out already
Yeah,
because they've been
yeah.
sighted in Maine.
Yeah,
They're
we
in
had
northern
one,
Mass.
we've had one hummingbird so far.
Really? You've already had one?
Yeah, it did come.
Oh,
Yeah, they know our feeder, they seem to remember it. First thing to go to, but I haven't seen them since, so,
I'm supposed to report the journey north.
oh. Well,
It's just kind
So,
of neat.
yeah, it was really,
Are we calling the meeting?
yes, yeah.
Okay, well, I've never been in charge. So, Ann, we'll see you around.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
bye.
bye-bye, everybody.
Okay, so see you in a couple of weeks. not sooner.
Yeah, Saturday.